Hello and welcome again to HRN Revive TV. I'm your host for this session, Arnold Threatt. We will be continuing to look at the sons of Noah and the things that they represent and how they impact us in our world today, based on their hearts and natures, the righteous being Shem, Japheth being the undecided, and Ham representing the unrighteous because of what he did to his father, Noah. So today I want to take a little journey here in Romans, and John. Both of these are talking about the same issue. As one of my favorite chapters in Romans. Starts in verse 28, Romans 8:28. And it talks about you and I and how he knew us before the very beginning. So join me there, if you will, and let's begin in verse 28 of chapter 8 of the book of Romans. But we know that to the ones loving Elohim, all things work together for good, to those being called according to purpose. He knew them in advance, and he sealed them with the likeness of the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn of many brothers. But whom he marked in advance, these he also called, and whom he called, these he also justified, and whom he justified, these he also glorified. Isn't it exciting to know deep down in our heart that our Father knew us possibly before he ever said, let there be light? And I've said this numerous times throughout different things that I've taught, but it's so exciting to know that he knew Arnold Threatt before he ever said, let there be light, possibly. And he sealed me and you in the image of his Son, so that when we came along, it would be familiar to him. And it is exciting. It should be for all, because we've been fashioned by the Creator, but especially for those who respond to his call. He says, many are called, but few choose. Let us all be one of the ones who choose. As we respond to his call, we join the Yahweh family of Yod-Vah and his son, Yeshua Messiah, who was the firstborn of many brothers. Let us consider the length that our Creator King has and will go to ensure that we make it into his eternal kingdom. First of all, he paid a very high price to restore us back to himself through his death, burial, and resurrection, payment that we could be renewed to the Father. And that is one of the great promises that he gives us here in this passage, that he knew who we were. Not predestination. It's an all-knowing Elohim who knew who would be the ones to respond. He called them all, but he also knew who would respond. Can I understand that? You possibly? No, I don't think so. But I want to couple this little short couple of verses here, 3 verses, with John chapter 6, verses 36 and following. Join me there, John 6:36. But I said to you that you also have seen me and did not believe. Knowing here he was talking to his disciples. Verse 37 says, all that the Father gives to me shall come to me, and the one coming to me I will in no way cast out. For I have come down out of heaven, not that I should do my will, but the will of him who sent me. Here we start to look at the relationship between the Father and the Son. And what our Messiah gave up as he left the very presence of the Father and came down here to show us a better way to keep the Torah and to pay the penalty for our sin and wrongdoing. He came to help mankind. He came to show us the way. And for those who want to separate the Father from the Son, that's impossible, my friends. He says the Father and I are one. We're inseparable. I only do what I see my Father doing. I only repeat what I hear my Father saying. So the commandments that Yeshua says when he says, if you love me, follow my commandments, he's talking about his and his Father's commandments. They're all one. They're not separable. If we pick up in verse 39, he says, this is the will of the Father sending me, that of all that he has given me, I shall not lose any from it, but shall raise him up in the last day. And this is the will of the one sending me, that everyone seeing the Son and believing into him should have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. He says that often in this particular part of John, that he is going to raise us up in the last day. As we look into some future teachings, please remember this passage, because he has made us a promise here, and he will clothe us with righteousness. The acts of the saints are righteous indeed, because he is raising us up, not we ourselves. Skip down to verse 44. He says this, no one is able to come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up in the last day. For it is written in the prophets that all of them will be taught of Elohim. Everyone who hears, therefore, and learns from the Father comes to me. So we see here that this is a joint effort. It's a tag team, if you will, of the Father and the Son going after his children and bringing them into the fold, into the eternal kingdom. Verse 46 says, it is not that man can see the Father, rather he who is from Elohim is who sees the Father. And he came to tell us, truly, truly, I say to you, the one believing into me has everlasting life. Emphatically, our Messiah is saying to us, those who are believing the Father in me and walking out what my Father has taught and what I have revealed to you, being admonished by the Spirit and encouraged by the Spirit, being taught by the Spirit that comes straight from Yahweh and from his Son Yeshua, we have everlasting life if we continue in that. And by the mercy and grace of our Creator King, may we all continue in that. But we've seen the eternal team here at work. And who can want to outrun or try to get away from the blessings that Yahweh's wanting to give us as his children? As we obey him, he adds to our understanding and wisdom, which helps our relationship with him grow into maturity as the Spirit of Elohim guides us. The opposite is true of those who choose unrighteousness. Their choices move them farther away from the Creator and his standards, and before long, they are in a spot most likely of no return to their own choosing. Not by Yahweh's, because he has said numerous times, I desire that none should perish, but that all should have everlasting life. Now I'd like for us to go to Isaiah 54 and look at some verses here that add more light to what we've been speaking of. Isaiah 54:8 says, "In a flood of wrath I hid myself from you for a moment. But I will have pity on you with everlasting kindness, says Yahweh, our Redeemer. For this is the waters of Noah to me. For as I swore to refrain from passing over the waters of Noah over the earth again, so I have sworn from being angry with you and rebuking you. For the mountains shall depart and the hills be removed, but my mercy shall not depart from you, nor shall the covenant of my peace be removed, says Yahweh, who has pity on you." He's talking to us. We just identified who his righteous believers are, not only then, but now. And those are those who hear and adhere, Shema, if you will, the teachings and instructions of the Father, covered by the blood of the Lamb and walking by the anointed Spirit of Yahweh, who teaches us in all things. Verse 11 says this, "Afflicted ones, storm-tossed and not comforted. Behold, I am laying your stones with fair colors, and have founded you with sapphires, and I will make your battlements of rubies and your gates carbuncle stones, and all your border stones of delight." Now, I don't know about you, but that sort of sounds a little bit like the New Jerusalem as it comes down out of heaven. And if you go read that and look at that description in the latter three chapters of the book of Revelation, you will see that he identifies that, but he's also identifying that as you and I. We are privileged, we're special, we have the best looking of everything as his children. Verse 13, he says, "And all your sons will be taught of Yahweh, and the peace of your sons will be great." I don't know how many of you have wayward children or grandchildren or close relatives, and your heart's desire is to have them come in. I would say that as we are faithful salt and light shining in those dark places of their lives, and they see Yahweh through us, he will call them and perhaps they will come. They have a free will choice. But like I said before, he's hemming us up, if you will, and not leaving us but one way out, and that's total surrender to him or total rejection of him. So this is what's happening in our day, in our hour. We're being asked to choose to be faithful or unfaithful. He says in verse 14 again, "We will be established in righteousness. You shall be far from oppression, for you shall not fear, and from terror, for it shall not come near you. Behold, gathering they shall gather, but not from me," he says, "who has gathered against you. By you he shall fall." So that adds information to what I just said. If they see Yahweh in you and they rebuke him and go the other way, you will watch them fall. Not that we want to, but that's their choice. This has been such a great and eternal, everlasting promise. As we endure till the end, He will be faithful. I pray that we will be faithful. So until next time, shalom.